Another Founder Wisdom podcast with Damian Martone, founder at Hatch Conference. I first met Damian talking in cold email for his conference that he organized, and realized that this guy was quite special because organizing a conference is usually quite hard. And it seems like Damian was successful at it from the get-go, which is quite surprising. Damian is a product guy, product designer, and the conference that he runs is also about this. It's in Berlin, if I am not mistaken. Damian, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit more about your background and Hatch.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Damian. I am originally Argentinian, and I moved to Germany about 10 years ago. I studied graphic design, moved into web design, and then UX design as things were coming along. And after a while of working for different startups and companies, started freelancing. While I was freelancing, I was also doing a lot of like startup stuff and just trying to make some other stuff happen. And and right now, besides my product design work, which I just still keep like a couple of days a week that I do, I also run Hatch Conference, which is a conference for UX and product professionals in person in Berlin, but also remotely hybrid.
Why did you move to Berlin/Germany?
To learn German. Actually, it was quite kind of an accident. I was supposed to be here just for 3 months, but while I was here the first time, I got some work, like freelance work from Kayak, which was just starting here in Berlin. And I hit it off with the head of UX, and then he said like, "Hey, we need someone who actually wants to stay. I have also Italian citizenship." So it made things quite easy, and 10 years later, I'm still here.
Why did you go into product and UX? What's your obsession with that?
So I was always, I studied graphic design in the university, and back then it was all still about like, visual communication and creating actual printed stuff. And I was always the guy who was interested in technology and like, hacking into like video games and things like that, and everything that was like in the computers, while all of my colleagues were all like illustrators and like craftsmen and things like that. So I think it was a natural transition when I started actually creating websites. I realized that I can make money out of it, that I can make more money than with my actual day job as a graphic designer. So it sort of led indirectly into UX as sort of the iPhone came in and everything turned into a more digital world.
I'm getting emotional here. I'm crying. I'm not sure why my eye, like maybe allergies or something. But yeah, no,
A
UX
touching
is
story.
also UX is a passion of mine, and uh, I do think like yeah, on the emotional side of things, like great products they change the world, right? Like yesterday I was reading about Steve Jobs, and yeah, Steve was kind of an asshole, but he did for the damage and the destruction or the tough love. Because I think yeah, short term it was damage, but long term it was growth. I think that everyone that worked with him was like the dude was a legend, although he was an asshole. I think that he
Yeah.
added humongous value to this world, right? With the iPods and all these beautiful devices that are so easy to use, because
Mm-hmm.
people have busy lives, and they're stressed. They don't have time to figure out how this works. Good example, still with Apple products, like bought this MacBook Air, and the transition was like so seamless and easy. If you want to sell your used device, it's also very easy. Another good product is this Shure microphone. We appreciate well designed, well built products, and we also appreciate well built experiences, like Airbnb, like Uber. Like everything is thoughtful, everything is designed according to how human brains think.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, UX and product has been used for not so good purposes lately. If you check all the top websites, well, they're addiction machines like TikTok and Facebook and all of that. So there's the ethical component to it. What do you make of that? How can you use your UX and product superpowers, because that's what they are. You kind of are designing people's experiences for good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, one has to be conscious about all the ethics around everything. I think, obviously, when there's so much money in an industry and then there's so much going on, and the speed is so big, it's really tough to sometimes make a stop and really think about what it's doing. I guess the biggest example is the whole gamification thing, how it's sort of like came as a great tool to make, you know, users stay more in your product and all that stuff, and then we realize how harmful it could be, or how, you know, misused it could be. Particularly, I think each and every one of us has learned through their career how some of the stuff that we might have done was not best practice in terms of, you know, accessibility and inclusion, and you know, and actually doing the time for what users want. But ultimately, it's both our responsibility to create experiences that are, you know, ethical, as much as it is to try to inform others that work with us, you know, when they come looking for a specific product or a specific job, what should be done, and you know, how far are we willing to go in a specific project, depending on that.
What's the genius behind ChatGPT's product, and what's the genius behind Apple Vision Pro's product?
I mean, I think it's every product that has this idea that it's going to revolutionize anything we do, and save a lot of hours on things that we have been doing manually and repetitively, is always attractive to us. I think for the Apple Vision Pro, it's still too early to tell whether that's going to be the real future and what we imagine our, you know, life will be. But I think ChatGPT just comes after like many years of people, you know, telling us that automation is the future, and what we're going to have a lot of things that we do repetitively be replaced by machines. So yeah, personally, I think that's not as surprising.
What's the UX genius behind Hatch? How do you get people onboarded seamlessly, and how do you have them have the best experiences? And yeah, that question comes with another question in my mind, is like applying UX to a conference. And I
Yeah.
mean, it's a good thing, because the UX to conference is shit. The proof is that I don't want to go to conferences myself. I had somewhat bad experiences with networking events, you know, and I'd love, I have a final question also that will be quite tricky, but tell us about the UX behind the conference. It's
Yeah. No, I mean, it's absolutely as you say it. There's multiple things, and on one side, conferences are broken in a lot of ways, and especially like after the pandemic, the reason why people come to conferences, I think, has radically changed, and a lot of conferences that just returned have not yet realized that. So a lot of the content and the knowledge is really online, and you can really get most of it even for free sometimes, most of the time. So there's really not a big point in just coming and listening to just one big great speaker and going back home, right? That's not what it's about. It's all about really being in the same room with people who are just like you and trying to make as many connections as possible. And we know that in spite of how great our online tools are, the kind of, you know, how vulnerable we are when we're in person and face to face, it's completely different. And the kind of ways that humans build relationships are in person. So our whole target, at least for the in-person part, has always been to make it much more about the people, and we say, okay, you know, like, come for the great speakers, but stay for the people, because we have all these dynamics in place that ensure that you're going to have at least the opportunities to meet people who are just like you, starting with the idea that the conference is invitation only and is only for certain designers that have a specific experience, which, instead of it just excluding everyone else, just really includes the right people and makes the event really relevant, right? So we didn't do it so that people are like, you can't come to this conference, it's like elitist and you are not allowed. It's more to be like, hey, it's a small conference, we want you to turn around and always be able to face someone who might be relevant for you as well. And this is already, you know, in the smaller version that we did last year with 150 people, it turned to be like the sort of really the killer feature. Other than that, we always try to have like sessions and things to break the groups into smaller things, have a lot more interactivity. We have everything from like mixers happening before the conference, so you can also go to different micro events to meet other people. We have a system to allow you to see who's going to come and who's going to come from your region, so that you all can also pre-connect. And we really establish a lot of different opportunities for you, no matter how, you know, in the spectrum of introvert to extrovert you are, to really be able to connect and make something out of it. Yeah.
Last tricky question. The most horrible experiences I have, and a lot of nomads have, is traveling. How would you improve the UX of traveling in itself. Most importantly, the UX of airports and the UX of airlines and flight slash airplane industry.
I mean, the problem with all of that, I worked in travel for 3 years in different companies. I worked at Kayak, and I worked at 2 other companies who were all about like trains and planes and stuff like that. And unfortunately, there's so much that's regulatory and that's kind of broken by design and will not change at any point in the next few years. I think particularly, sort of preparation and I guess that the best way you can really improve design is to really understand what kind of things annoy you by the traveling of design of traveling, and try to make those things, mitigate those things by just learning, right? And there's a lot of travel hacks that a lot of people don't know about, and I travel a lot, and I do a lot of things just like going to airport lounges and things like that a lot of people think like, oh, it's like so expensive or you can't do. Like sometimes with a credit card you can just do it, and it just improves your kind of quality of your waiting time by 1,000,000. Things like that, right? Like know more or less security of the airport, like know what you're going to face, the kind of country that you're going in and how much of a pain in the ass are going to be to let you in or not. All that kind of stuff just makes everything better. But the specific experience, I'm afraid that it's so bounded to regulation and law that very little that we can do as designers.
Yeah, you're somewhat right. Like first, avoid planes at all costs. You can use like carpooling apps like BlaBlaCar in the Americas, or Bus, like BuzzBud, Montreal company, do it. Recent hack, like buy your ticket before, with the QR code and everything, so that you can skip that part and go straight up to security. And choose your seat also is another hack oddly enough, I discovered lately, with all the years of experience I have, to book like seats straight up at the front and not have the chaos and the claustrophobia, and avoid like all last minutes, and probably use the company itself instead of kiwi.com, for example. Like use the check the flights on kiwi.com and then buy them on the flight, the airlines website. Yeah. That was cool. That was short and sweet, Damian. Where can people find out more about you?
Sure. They basically at hatchconference.com, just like Hatch. There you'll find most of the things you need to know about the conference, and of course about myself. Or on LinkedIn, I'm Damian.Martone. Just look me up.
Thank you.